Hey guys, I'm Darren Miles with Darren Miles Photography, and I'm based here in beautiful, sunny Southwest Florida. For those of you that have been on my channel for a while, you know I haven't been doing a lot of videos lately, and there's a bunch of different reasons for that, because I've been doing some kind of soul searching with regard to the direction that I want to take this channel. Specifically, if you've watched me over the last 10 or 11 years, my channel's been very focused on lens and camera reviews, predominantly on lens reviews. But the reality is, especially in the last 4 or 5 years, the nuanced differences between camera systems and lenses kept getting exponentially smaller and smaller and smaller. And it kind of hit this point where, frankly, virtually every lens and every camera is great, more than capable. And I just came to this conclusion that I was getting bored doing camera and lens reviews because I wasn't coming across many bad lenses anymore. So given that, I decided, okay, it's getting harder and harder to differentiate these subjective differences between one camera and one lens from the other. So that's kind of boring. So where am I going to go? What am I going to do to change up this channel? And I decided what I was going to do is focus the channel a little bit more on technique in terms of how to get pictures instead of the gear that we use to get them. Because at the end of the day, gear can't do lighting, gear can't do composition, gear can't do posing, etc. That's kind of up to you, the photographer. The most important tool in your entire toolbox is right here. And I think photographers, especially the newer ones, tend to get hung up on what gear did you use, what settings were you at, that sort of thing. And I've come to realize that over time, those things are less and less important. So moving forward, I'm going to be focusing a little bit more on how to use the gear and technique than I am about cameras and lenses alone. So hope you understand that, hope you appreciate that. And in that vein, let's move forward with today's video. To my right, camera left, is a Profoto B1X, and to my left, camera right, is a Godox AD300 Pro. These are two incredibly capable flashes, and I did a video 2.5 years ago comparing these two, and I came away very impressed with the Godox AD300. In fact, so impressed that I bought 2 more of these, and I use them all the time, both in the studio and on location. And the reality is, my Profoto B1, B10X Plus, and B1X, frankly, have been collecting more dust than they've been getting use, and actually may put these up for sale. But like anything, when you get to use something over the course of 2 years, you begin to understand what some of the shortcomings are of any piece of gear, be it a camera, a lens, a flash, etc. And there is one glaring shortcoming to the AD300 that has to be managed. And if you're curious to know what that glaring shortcoming is, well, stick around and find out. If you watched that first video where I compared the AD300 Pro and the B1X, you'll note that I came away with some really important advantages to the AD300. Namely, it's $499 versus $3,000. If you need to replace a battery, it's $69 versus $429. If you need a trigger, they're $69 versus $400 and some odd dollars. Okay, so in a further testament as to how little or how infrequently I've been using my Pro photos, I actually knew they came out with a new trigger. I assumed they had the old one and the new one running concurrently. The new one here, the Profoto Connect, is obviously designed to work more with the newer flashes with the different UI in the back, like the B10, the B10X Plus, etc. I actually bought one of these for my Leica right here. Unfortunately, the reason why I'm not familiar with it is because I bought it and I didn't realize it was for the Leica L mount. I have a Leica M mount. So it works fine up to the max sync speed, which I think is either 1/125th or 1/160th, whatever it is on the Leica. But I'm not really familiar with it. I can tell you that I think the Godox one is still easier to use, and I'm wrong about the price too. It's $399, and if you can find an old one, assuming they still have it, here's one here for Panasonic and Olympus. It says $249, but it also says it's out of stock, so I'm not sure whether Profoto still has these. Again, this is a testament to how little I've been paying attention to Profoto, which is ironic because when I made the last video, I hadn't looked at anybody else, so I guess I flipped, and now that I'm working with Godox as much as I am, I haven't really paid attention to what Profoto's been doing. So anyway, disregard the part about the trigger being $429. It's actually less than that. And also I was wrong about the battery too. The battery's 380, not 429, but that's still significantly more expensive than the Godox. The actual usage of the trigger, the old trigger, to be clear, on the Profoto, they've updated their triggers to the Connect, which are a little bit better, I admit, but they're still not great and still not the easiest things to use. But the trigger on the AD300 tells you the power setting of the flash that you're using. With the original and more common triggers on the Profoto, you have to look at the back of the display to see what your power setting is. There's no way to actually see it from the old controller. What I found myself doing is asking my client or walking over to the flash to check it out, as opposed to just knowing what the setting is by looking at the trigger. One of the other biggies was Profoto. As much as I love them, if you ever have to deal with a service issue, when you send your flash to Profoto, it's a 4 to 6 week process, oftentimes. Occasionally, I got them back sooner. But the reality is, for a company that charges as much as they do, there's a lot of shortcomings here and a lot of things that make me say, why am I paying this Profoto tax to get subpar service, etc.? Now, in the 2.5 years that I've been using this flash, one of the other things that I've discovered about it that I think is amazing, and I don't know why this is, maybe one of you techies can explain this to me, but I found that the high-speed sync capability of the AD300 Pro is actually way better than the B1X. In fact, the exposure is just better, it just works better. I could be at 1/8,000th of a second, and it's almost like I'm using a global shutter. There's like hardly any degradation in the amount of flash that hits the subject. I don't know how they do that, but I noticed that with the Profoto B1X, I really have to amp up the power to get a decent exposure, especially as that shutter speed gets shorter and shorter. So anyway, as we move on with this video and I go into the explanation as to what is it about the AD300 Pro that's a shortcoming, well, this one's kind of a biggie, and it may be a deal breaker for a lot of you. But one of the big downsides to the AD300 Pro, especially if you work in a hot, sweaty environment like I do here outdoors in Southwest Florida, especially in the summertime, if you're in a situation where you're at maybe a wedding or doing a portrait and you're outdoors and it's a hot, sunny day, and the flash is going pretty regularly, pop, 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 as you're taking pictures. What ends up happening is that the AD300 Pro overheats. And that can be a serious problem, especially if you're at a wedding. Okay, because what ends up happening is you'll be snap, 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 and this thing will be going beep, 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 letting you know it's ready. And you could have a full charge battery, and then when you hit the shutter, it won't flash. And then you find yourself waiting because it has to cool down before it beeps to let you know it can shoot again. It's kind of a major shortcoming because if you're in any kind of pressure cooker situation, and for those wedding photographers out there, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You got to go, 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 go. If you're in that situation and you can't get your flash to fire, as you can imagine, that's very stressful, and that's something that can be a huge distraction in a pressure cooker type situation like a wedding. For a portrait session, not as big of a deal, but just more of an inconvenience. But in a situation where you have to get the shot, you have to get it done quickly, and you have to move on to the next one, the AD300 Pro can run into some issues with overheating and the amount of time it takes for that strobe to be ready between shots. So please keep that in mind. Everything else about this flash is absolutely amazing. I use them in the studio almost exclusively now. When I first did that video, I said that I was going to use the Profotos in the studio. I think I've used the Profoto twice in the past year, and I'm not exaggerating. I just found that the AD300 Pro is easier to work with, it's smaller, it's more portable, and in the event that one does overheat, hooking up another one is actually really simple. When I initially reviewed this flash system, I also said that I didn't like the mount and that it had an adapter, and the adapter was just another piece of gear. I've kind of changed my tune on that a little bit too. I kind of like the adapter. One, because there's a ton of Bowen mount light modifiers out there, be them softboxes, beauty dishes, etc. There's a Bowen's mount modifier for just about anything, and it's amazing. You can attach them all to that. And also, the beauty of the modifier is that you can literally just slide the flash in and out, so you can change them out pretty quickly. If one's overheating, you got a standby, just pop it in there, a couple of seconds, and you're not going to miss the shot. Yes, it's one extra step, but again, This is 1/6 the price of this. Now, obviously, I can't make that decision for you, but I can tell you in my own experience that overall, I definitely prefer the AD300 Pros over the B1 and the B1X overall, in spite of the overheating shortcoming. So there you have it. Still an amazing flash. Both of these are amazing. And one thing, the Profoto doesn't overheat. So to Profoto's credit, if you are going to be in a situation like a wedding and you have to absolutely get the shot, and of course you do, then you still may want to consider this. But in terms of every other capability, I found that the AD300 Pro is way more than capable enough. So sound off in the comments down below and tell me what you think about the new direction of the channel. I'm Darren Miles with Darren Miles Photography, and I'm based here in beautiful, sunny Southwest Florida. If you like videos like this, go ahead and give me a like, or better yet, subscribe. And until the next time, happy shooting.